Hey Cloud Gamers, today I am covering Mortal Shell. This launched on GeForce NOW as well as Steam and a few other platforms last week. Mortal Shell is a ruthless deep action RPG that tests your sanity and resilience in a shattered world, and it really does test your sanity, as you will see as we come up to the gameplay a little bit later. Starting off with a speed test then. A little bit different this time. We have 4 rigs that we're having a look at, including GeForce NOW for the top end against the maximum settings 2080 Super, as well as the slightly lower end on Gamnube and mid-range on Shadow PC Boost. GeForce NOW really pulled it out of the bag here with a 48-second load time to the title, very closely followed surprisingly by Gamenube at 53 seconds.
I've kept your flesh safe, family.
And the 2080S here being the surprise at being a little bit lower, as it's still not even hit the title screen yet, with Shadow Boost hitting the titles at 116, but GeForce NOW hitting the playable at 1 minute 15, followed by Gamnube at 124. So maximum settings only just hitting the title screen there at 1 minute 22, which is a big surprise for the maximum settings rigs, as it's the tier 3 with 2080s. Would have expected it to have loaded a bit faster, but I'm not sure whether the Mortal Shell Canadian servers are slowing it down there on load, but it finally reaches playable at 2 minutes 12. The GeForce NOW really showing that speed to load there, and Mortal Shell is really a well optimized game in general, and the load times are very good, which is quite handy because you do end up dying quite a lot, or at least I do. So going into a direct comparison here, it has these fantastic glimpses as there's no map, so you have to decode where it is showing you where these extra bits are. And you can see from the glimpses here that as they're all happening at the same time, you can see that optimization in effect. That even the Gamnube rig is looking absolutely fantastic here. Shadow PC has got a slightly weird green tint to it, which I'm not sure why. But across the board, everything's looking pretty good. As we freeze here, looking down upon the enemies that we're about to drop into, you can see that weird green tinge on Shadow PC, and I'm not quite sure why it's so much richer on there. But it's very hard to tell the graphics between the high-end maximum settings 2080 Super versus the GeForce NOW 2060B. And even Gamnube is looking pretty good, only really the frames per second is dropping down a little bit here. The quality of the armor really stands out on GeForce NOW in the maximum settings rigs. As we move over to some single gameplay on the Gamnube side, you can see it's still holding over 50 frames per second. Using the Moonlight streamer here from my MacBook Pro, it's still looking very good. Slightly lesser quality on the grass blades there as we went past, and in comparison, as you'll see a little bit later, the armor is not looking quite as shiny. And you really do have to manage your health and everything and dodge like there's no tomorrow in this game. Otherwise, as you can see here, I've been knocked out of my shell already. The Shadow PC here, colours looking quite a lot richer than on the other platforms for some reason. I think it's because I'm using the Moonlight streamer across the board. So the Shadow PC streamer here giving some extra colour. You can see it holding above that 60 frames per second quite happily, and even though I'm trying to battle 3 people, by the way not a good idea in Mortal Shell, it's staying above those 60 frames per second, apart from the occasional dip into the 50s. You've really got to get that timing right, especially for the parries. As I go into a boss fight here on GeForce NOW, And again, even though it's only the 2060B, you can see that quality on the armour and the blades of grass around. And this werewolf looking type boss is difficult. I've not managed to beat him on any of the rigs that I've been using, but I have found that the input lag, etc. is a little bit more manageable on GeForce NOW compared to the others. But that doesn't stop me being just bad at the game. Finishing off then with the maximum settings 2080 Super. Again, going into that boss fight, not really seeing a lot of difference to the GeForce NOW rig. As I said before, the game is very well optimized, so you can use the lower rigs. This is using ultra settings across the board, with motion blur and depth of field disabled. Maximum settings then staying over the 100 frames per second mark in this. I'm looking on par with GeForce NOW, so I would say that GeForce NOW is also happily keeping over that 60 frames per second mark. As we go into a final stretch, as we run down through this section towards where we saw one of those glimpses, and you can see side by side that the quality on GeForce NOW and maximum settings is a little bit higher than that on Gamnube and Shadow PC. And that Shadow PC kind of higher contrast, I can't really figure out whether it looks better or worse compared with the maximum settings in GeForce NOW colours. Personally, I think it looks a little bit oversaturated, and I'm not quite sure why that is. Maybe they're tweaking things with the streamer. Overall, Mortal Shell is an absolutely brutal hack and slash RPG. With no map, it does make you have to learn the surroundings and really manage your dodge and health abilities. And getting that parry right is definitely the difference between life and death. I highly recommend checking it out. It is a frustrating game if you are not used to the kind of slower elements and really having to watch your health and dodge abilities, but it is good fun when you get it right. I'll leave you with a bit of that side-by-side gameplay across all of the systems so you can see that happening. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button to stay up to date with all the latest across all cloud gaming platforms, and I will see you next time.